So, I have a confession. I didn't realize I missed roughly half of the most frequently used DBD phrases in my last video. Let me make it up to you. Stay till the end to see the most important one that I missed, or skip to like 7:32 if you hate jokes and cute baby animals. Let's do it. Respecting is a common term used when a killer is chasing a survivor through a loop that involves a pallet and they hesitate or stop when the survivor reaches the pallet's location so as to avoid being stunned if they drop it. Greeting is a term used when a survivor is being chased and is very stingy with their pallet usage, as in they refuse to drop any pallets. This can work in their favour as sometimes killers will string through pallets expecting a hit, however if the survivor keeps running they might miss, resulting in the survivor gaining distance and the pallet will remain available for later in the game. Pallet camping, unlike greeting, is when a survivor stands at a pallet waiting for the killer to run past and then drops on the killer to stun them. This is usually bad as it's generally a waste of a pallet and the time spent waiting at the pallet could have been used to gain distance. Sticking means the same as committing. Sticking a heal, generator, totem or gate means that you're going to stick to completing that action even if it puts you in danger of getting injured or downed. Generally this is done to benefit yourself or your team in the long run, even though it's possible to be detrimental to you in the short term. Pokos. I actually hadn't heard this one before, so here's Lilith Omen to explain it.
Basically, a Pokos hit is any normal hit that looks like it shouldn't have connected, where maybe only the tip of your weapon actually connects and you're sat there thinking, damn, I feel really bad for this survivor, that probably should not have hit.
Basekit refers to a survivor or killer's default capabilities. All survivors have a Basekit movement speed of 4.0 meters per second, which means that this is how fast they move without any perks or status effects. Borrowed time is also considered Basekit because even though there is a perk that extends the effects of this, you don't need to have the perk equipped to gain the initial benefit. Killer Basekits will differ as they vary widely and generally their power affects their Basekit. For example, Huntress specifically has a Basekit movement speed of 4.4 meters per second, however all killers have a Basekit carrying speed of 3.68 meters per second. Immersed or stealth players are players that play Dead by Daylight like it's life and death. They wear dark clothing, walk around the map, and if they hear the killer's terror radius you better believe they're the first person into a locker. It's a miracle if they touch a generator all game. Rubberbanding in its simplest form relates to a latency issue where a survivor or a killer is moving in a direction and then is suddenly teleported back a few steps or stutters in place instead of moving forward. This is akin to how a rubber band snaps back into place after being stretched. A juicer is a survivor that loops a killer for an extended period of time. This is usually associated with good looping skills and not a survivor that drops every pallet to extend their chase. Juicing is also a contextual term that's associated with being stalked by Michael Myers. M1 basically refers to mouse button 1, which is a default button for killers to swing their main weapon. If a killer M1s you, it means they're not using their power and just hitting you normally. If you force an M1, it means you put yourself in a position where the killer's power won't work and they need to hit you with their main weapon to get any damage at all. An M1 killer refers to a killer whose power does not help to injure or down survivors in chase, and the main way that they can down survivors is with an M1 hit. Alternatively, M2 relates to the default button for a killer's power. An M2 killer is one that can injure or down you with their power alone. Sometimes you'll also hear the term M2 only, which refers to a killer that is only trying to hit you with their power. This is usually prevalent in Huntress and Hillbilly players. Autoaim is used to describe when you're playing killer and Dead by Daylight detects a hitbox in front of you when you M1 or M2, and it guides your hit in a specific direction. This occurs most noticeably around hook survivors, forcing you to hit someone on the hook instead of around it, or when a killer such as Bubba uses his chainsaw and gets auto-aimed into a breakable door or a pallet instead of the survivor that's beside it. Snowballing is what occurs when something happens in-game causing a chain reaction that drastically puts one side ahead of the other. This could be something like a killer getting an early hook, then grabbing the rescuing survivor and putting them on another close hook, forcing the remaining survivors off generators to go for the save and potentially lose the game then and there. An Insta-down is anything that can take a survivor from a healthy state to a dying state in one hit. The most common example of this is Michael Myers in Tier 3. Some common terms for a few killer perks that are widely used are Barbecue, which is short for barbecue and chili, an aura reading perk from the Cannibal, BAMS, which refers to the perk Bamboozle that blocks vaults when killers take them, and NOED, which stands for No Education. Wait, what? NOED is the acronym for No One Escapes Death, a killer hex perk that gives a movement speed buff and insta-down when all generators have been completed. Both of these next acronyms are used in the endgame lobby screen to show you a sentiment after the match. GLNG stands for Good Luck Next Game, which is a friendly message, and GGEZ stands for Good Game Easy and is usually used as a toxic statement to tell the other side that the game was too easy for them. Note that I've not included GGWP, Good Game Well Played, as that's a very generic term. Hook dancing is when you consistently wave your arms up and down when you're on the hook. As other survivors can see you when you've been hooked, this action indicates to your team that you've been camped on the hook and for other survivors to not come save you and to do gens. Splitting gens refers to when all or most survivors split up to work on separate generators instead of crowding a single gen to speed up its process. This is beneficial as it creates more pressure for the killer as there are more generators they need to worry about, and it means the killer can only interrupt one survivor if they do come over to that generator. A slug race is when the killer downs all the survivors and corrals them together at the exit gates. After lining the survivors up, the killer swings their weapon and all the downed survivors start crawling towards the exit gate. First one out wins. Generally, if you're the last survivor and the killer downs you and picks you up, you'll usually start wiggling to try and escape. If you do this and the killer starts shaking his head or swinging his weapon, this is code for don't struggle, which usually means they're going to carry you to the hatch and let you escape. Usually. Survivor-sided refers to maps that are generally stronger for survivors than most killers due to the map size, map-specific tiles, gen spread, and pallet density. Likewise, killer-sided maps are generally smaller, can have less line of sight blockers, bad gen spread, bad or a lack of pallets, and numerous dead zones. Techs are little tricks that experienced survivors and killers do to try and confuse the other side or to get an unexpected hit or down. Survivor techs are things such as CJ techs, corner techs, and window techs, while killer techs are killer dependent such as Blight's hug tech and Hillbilly's S-curve. Zoning is when a killer forces a survivor into a specific area or zone that is considered unsafe, such as a dead zone or towards the edge of the map away from potential resources and structures. Bully squad. I considered leaving this one out, but a lot of people have been asking about it. Simply put, it refers to a group of survivors that don't care much to do objectives and are just in the game to ruin the killer's experience. Usually recognized as a Swift who all change characters or items within a few seconds left in the lobby screen and send the killer to a survivor-sided map or stack petrified oaks. Beamer refers to a flashlight, sometimes called a torch, or a lamp, or a beacon, or maybe a small portable battery-powered electric light dispenser. Okay, never mind, it's just a flashlight or beamer. Comp Corner relates to a tactic used in competitive DBD matches that has overflown to the mainstream population. This is when a survivor that's being chased by a killer has run out of resources to use, so they'll lead the killer as far towards the edge of the map, generally to a corner, where they'll get downed. This wastes the killer's time by having to walk all the way out there and then back to a hook, and generally allows no gen pressure in that time, as generators rarely spawn in the corners of the maps. Bloodlust has 3 tiers, with increasing movement speed at each tier. You lose Bloodlust when you hit a survivor or break a pallet. With that in mind, Bloodlusting is when a killer chases a survivor directly through a loop or refuses to break a pallet so that the eventual Bloodlust speed build up ends in them getting a hit or a down due to the sheer difference in speed that they have over the survivor. Meta stands for most effective tactics available, and meta perks are the best perks currently in use for survivors and killers. These are considered the best perks due to the game's current state and the strength of each perk or the synergies that they have together. Note that different killers will have different meta perks based on their power and playstyle. Sweaty is a term given to players that use the best killers, items, and perk combinations while also playing the game like there's money on the line. It's generally used as a negative term, but hey, if you want to win, play how you want. Eerie is short for iridescent and contextually refers to 2 things. One is your survivor or killer grade, Eerie 4 to Eerie 1. The second is Eerie power add-ons for killers. This includes, but is not limited to, iridescent heads for Huntress, which can down you instantly, and Judith's Tombstone for Michael Myers that allows you to kill healthy survivors with no prior hook stages. Eerie items and add-ons do exist for survivors, but they're rarely referred to in this way. Pipping and Depipping refer to gaining or losing a little red dot depending on how many points you received in the game prior. When your pips are full, your grade increases. Be aware that your grade doesn't actually reflect your skill, and you simply get a blood point reward at the end of the season based on how high your killer and survivor grades are. Trading occurs when one survivor unhooks another survivor and is then downed and takes that person's place on the hook. This is generally done to stop the hook survivor hitting the next or the final hook stage. Grab game refers to when you are trying to unhook another survivor and the killer is at the hook, and instead of hitting you immediately, they wait to try and grab you off the hook when you're in the unhooking animation. Hence the term grab game. The killer wins if they get the grab, and the survivor wins if they get the unhook. Booping the Snoot is a friendly gesture engaged in by survivors and pig players where both sides crouch and the survivors use the point animation to poke the pig in the nose. This is the most wholesome experience in Dead by Daylight. Okay, we're done. Again, let me know if I missed any, but I'm like 1,000,000% sure that that's it this time. Thanks for hanging out guys, see you next time, Psych out.